Hello, everybody, and welcome to another amazing week of the Five Guys on Live. We are excited to have everybody with us as we prepare for a phenomenal week of gratitude. Some call it Thanksgiving, some call it a celebration of Indigenous people's rights. I call it, a Thursday with a lot of food and a whole lot of clapbacks. We have a full show docket for you tonight. And really, we really hope for everyone watching that you also chime in and give us your thoughts, your opinions, and your ideas as we go, Darius, to our very first topic, which is your homie from, mass murderer, some would say, life in danger, the one and only Kyle Rittenhouse. So the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict has come in. Darius, tell us about it.
I mean, I don't have very much to say about it. I think that everyone has seen it's been a major headline over the weekend that Kyle Rittenhouse was found not guilty of all of the charges that he was charged with, stating that they argued that it was affirmative defense in this case, and so it was found that he was not guilty of any of the charges that were brought against him. I think we've been following this for a while. We've kind of seen how things have played out. So I'm wondering, how do you guys feel about the verdict? Do we feel that this was do we feel like the judicial system worked in the way that it was supposed to work in this case? And how do we feel? What does this case mean for, I guess, other people in America who may be in similar situations?
Well, I'm just going to say this. I wasn't surprised. I didn't see any surprises in the verdict. And to answer your question, yes, the judicial system worked for the person it is meant to work for. And so I think him now coming out saying it was never about the Black Lives Matter movement and he supports Black Lives Matter is a crock and a slap in the face. And so I'm just saying it is what it is. I'm really looking at Georgia now for that trial.
Sure, I'll go. To go off of, or to piggyback off of your point, Zach, him saying that, it's never about race and that he supports the Black Lives Matter movement. I hope with him saying that BLM really takes him to task on that and just really holds him, if they can, in any type of way, fashion, or form, accountable to that comment. To really just, in my mind, just really portray just the sham and the disgraceful human being that I believe that he is. Because at the end of the day, we know that you have been photographed holding the white supremacist sign with other white supremacists. We know that Matt Gaetz has offered you a job in Congress. We know that you have been endorsed by so many high-ranking, influential, far-right people that believe in the white supremacist agenda. And if you know that this was never about race, if you know that you have some type of support with the BLM movement, then at the beginning of this case, if you will, you shouldn't even allowed it to become politicized. If we really are going to, just strip away just the politics and the theater around it and just where we are right now, I feel like he had enough power and just, voice to come out and say like, hey, let's just, operate this case as is. Let's not make it about politics. Let's not make it about race. Let's not make it about this, that, and the third. But he decided to do that. And which is why a lot of people are definitely upset, disappointed, giving him the side eye, so on and so forth. So yeah, and I also agree with you, Zach. I'm really focused on the Arbery situation right now. I'm praying for justice. Hopefully we can talk about that later, because I was really pissed about what that lady said in court about Ahmaud. Y'all probably heard that sound clip.
Yeah.
I haven't heard it.
I will say this. I'll kind of add this piece into it, right? Because I did a lot of research. Once the verdict broke, I did not watch this trial. I could not watch the trial. It was beyond what I had the emotional bandwidth to handle. I'm not watching a lot of news, but I'm reading a lot of news right now for my own personal mental health. But I will say that after the verdict broke, I did a lot of research and read a lot of things. And I heard a lot of political commentators that I used to respect, or legal commentators I used to respect, give their perspective. And they were talking about why Kyle Rittenhouse was found to be innocent or acquitted. Number one, a lot of these people said that it was because of his brilliant testimony on the stand and the major amount of prepping that happened by the defense attorney to get him ready. He had 2 mock trials, and that got him there. And his, fake tears garnered a lot of support from they didn't call them fake tears. I call them fake tears from the jury box. And then it talked about the role of the judge and the role the judiciary played in this case, and how this judge definitely seemed to show favoritism to this young murderer, and that somewhat helped his case along. And I do agree with that part. I think the bottom line is this truly indicates what we've always known, but sometimes forget, that in America, the way that a white person, specifically a white male, is treated by the justice system is different than other people and other races. And it is that way by design. Some people have commented that the judicial system is broken. The judicial system is not broken. This is the way it was meant to work. And you have a lot of bias on the part of this judge to sway this jury to benefit this young man. And you also have, again, the dictates of the law. There is nothing that can be done about it. I also feel as though there's not a whole lot of energy that we should really spend on caring about this, because we can't fix this. What we can fix is future cases to ensure that justice is served. And the only way to do that is to vote effectively. This man, the judge who sentenced, or who really pushed for the acquittal of Kyle Rittenhouse, who sat on the bench and had the Donald Trump anthem play twice in court as a dog whistle to his fellow white supremacists, saying, "Don't worry about it, buddies. I got it under control. I am steering the right way for us, the Ku Klux Klan of 2021. What we have to do is, this man shouldn't have been on the bench. This man has run unopposed for multiple election cycles, and that's part of the problem. There's no doubt that this man is biased. There was a young lady sentenced by this man that I saw at 17 for killing her abuser. She was being assaulted, sexually abused, and she killed her assailant while he was abusing her, and she was sentenced by this judge to jail. So again, the fact that people in this area didn't know that or didn't care about that to run against this man or primary this man or try to get this man out of office, to me, is baffling. But the fault and the blame lies on us, the American people, and we have to look at that and consider that very heavily. There are a lot of Black people right now saying that they're not going to vote in upcoming elections, and they're pissed off at what Biden said when he said, "I believe in the jury system, I believe in the judicial system," and they're all upset, and they're mad at Kamala, and Kamala's not Black enough. You don't vote if you don't want to, and the consequences of those actions will be more verdicts like Kyle Rittenhouse. More people like Kyle Rittenhouse will be able to go out there and be empowered to kill people that look like me and that speak up like me, because the American justice system will protect them at all costs. And that's what I feel about that.
Really quickly, the only thing that I do want to push back on you on is when you said that we shouldn't spend a lot of energy on this. I think we should spend some type of energy on this because of the dog whistle. The fact that now he's being celebrated as a vigilante. And so if there are any future protests to come, which is probably inevitable in the time and state that we're living in or what have you, BLM, Asian Lives, LGBTQ, whatever, the All Women's March, does that signify another cuckoo person to travel across state lines and operate in the same behavior and then potentially murder people and then be under the protection of the quote unquote law? So I do think that we have to be extremely mindful of this. And when we do decide to put our feet to the pavement in these protests in the future, be very, very aware and cognizant of what just happened to prevent, future situations.
So, and again, just to move on from the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, because this young man, exonerated, completely free, off justice. And in the same week, now this is the thing that I really want people to take note of. In the exact same week as we had Kyle Rittenhouse being acquitted, in that exact same week, we found out that the two men who were accused of assassinating Malcolm X, who spent their lives in jail for the assassination of this man, although his family always said they didn't, they were finally also exonerated with the convictions overturned, and only one of them now still being left alive in his 80s to now enjoy the freedom that was taken away from him. And it's baffling to me how this hasn't made even more news. And to me, this is a true indication of the American justice system, where we can watch a 17-year-old white vigilante go out into the streets of a Black Lives Matter protest and gun down 3 people. We saw it with our own eyes. There was actual footage, and he can be acquitted. And then these 2 Black men can also go to jail and for their entire lives, and then finally find out that they were not guilty, and finally, after 40 plus years, get exonerated. That to me indicates the travesty of the justice system and how this system works, and it's heartbreaking. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on the overturning of the conviction of the assassination of Malcolm X, if any at all?
I do think that I am happy for this. Also among, and I'm sure you'll bring it up, even with Julius, even with that situation. But I also have to kind of give kudos to where we are right now as pertains to our documentaries that are out there, because a lot of our documentaries that are out there right now are helping to bring light to a lot of these issues that are actually out there. This documentary, 2019, of Who Killed Malcolm X. This gentleman really went hard because he knew that these men were innocent. So he went heavily hard for them. In 2019, that was 2020. 2019, the Surviving R. Kelly came out, and it was pushed very hard. And all of a sudden, months later, now he is on trial going there. Then in 2015, there was a documentary called The Jinx that actually went out that was about Robert Dawson. Then you had the documentary again in 2018. It was kind of a docu-series with the Julius Jones that Viola Davis helped produce on I believe it was ABC. And so these stories are being told and bringing light to that, and I appreciate that there are people now having their cases potentially overturned or bringing things to light. Happened in 2019 with the Neverland story. They're talking about Allen, what's the name? Something Allen. I can't think of it at this current moment. But they have a documentary coming out about him this year. So a lot of these documentaries that are coming out are helping some of these cases. So I hate to say our justice system is crap, but I appreciate the fact that we we need to keep putting this energy around these documentaries and digging up some more of this stuff. And as both of you and Zach and Vince have said, bringing more light to this, bringing it to the front, having these conversations, because hopefully that can start to change, especially if we can't rely on the justice system to do their part.
Yeah, hold on real quick, Zach, because I didn't know about this story, but I remember maybe it was like spring this year or early summer this year, that report came out about the cop or the detective or investigator around the Malcolm X case. He died, and on his deathbed, he wrote an open letter saying that everything the NYPD did was wrong, and what was accused was false, and that prompted Malcolm X's family to reopen the case. Is that how this sort of happened? Was that the triggering effect?
That was a part of the story. That was a part of it. So there was I think a biography written that also added some insight. Malcolm X's family never said and never believed that these men were the ones who did this. And again, exactly as Deborah stated here, that the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover had a huge part in this, and they played a lot around the cover-up and the misalignment of information. We still don't know to what extent Elijah Muhammad and what he played. There are allegations out there about that as well. And all of it really results, in my opinion, to a really tragic cover-up, because again, 3 men lost portions of their life behind a crime that they did not commit. And they are owed way more than anyone could ever give them because of this severe injustice. And now we're looking at the situation around Julius Jones, who was luckily given a stay of his execution. This man is still in jail for life. He is still in jail for life. And there's still lots of questions around the case that need to be answered. But luckily, if nothing else, he has his life and the system can fight another day. The question I have is, will the system fight for this man another day? Will he still have a chance to get justice now that his execution has been stayed, or the stay of execution has been granted? This was a man who was a college football player who had a bright future and career ahead of him, and again, whose sister and mother, when this supposed murder occurred, said he was at home with them having dinner. However, they were never questioned. They were never brought into evidence. His alibi was never given a chance to see the light of day in court. And as a result, he's been in jail since 2002, over 20 years, for a crime that he possibly did not commit. And it was the work of social justice advocates and celebrities like Kim Kardashian West that brought this to the forefront of the American public. So I want to go on record, because I have bashed Kim Kardashian West. I will continue to bash Kim Kardashian West, but I want to give her credit for the work that she is doing by using her white privilege, even though she has benefited from cultural appropriation more than anyone I know, and sexual proclivities being filmed more than anyone I know. I want to give her credit for using her privilege to fight for the justice in this case. And I also want to say that a lot of it had to do with the work of the TikTok community, which we'll talk about next. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on the exoneration? What are your thoughts on the stay of execution for Julius Jones?
Darius, where are your signs at? Because that was reasonably shady. The whole thing towards Kim Kardashian.
I've thrown my signs away. I've given up on you girls. No, you guys.
No, I think I had not heard, and it's my fault that I hadn't heard about this until recently, where my fraternity actually sent out an email to all of our members telling them to indate the governor and let him know that we are for Julius and all this stuff. And so I had to do a little research on it. And so definitely I'm glad. But I think it's the work of, like, I forgot the name of the company, but they did the Just Mercy movie that Michael B. Jordan. I think those things are now coming to light, and that these cases are going to be more and more prevalent. Also, I'm kind of piggybacking off of what DeAndre said about these documentaries. I think they're shedding light to a lot of things too, for people to see the background stories and some of the inconsistencies that's happened in the justice system, for people to now have hopefully a fair trial to get out of prison.
And Zach, one of the things that I found interesting when I was, as I continued to look into this story, is the fact, as you were talking about his alibi, and the fact that his best friend, ultimately he did a plea deal to get 30 years in prison. And he pretty much said that that Julius was the one who did the killing. That's number one. Number two, the governor took the parole board's recommendation. They voted 3-1, but they did the recommendation to have him life with the opportunity or the possibility of parole. The governor made the decision to switch it or modify it and simply say that. The last thing that was bothering me was the fact that this is a Republican governor. When there was a Democratic governor, he had the opportunity and the ability to do this very thing. He kept adding 30-day stays of execution until he had more time to make a determination. And then by the time he got out of office, it was no longer his decision. And so that was a problem for me, is you got to be very careful that, again, we always say your kinfolk, your skinfolk, and your kinfolk. We also got to be very careful about who you put these D's and these R's behind, because just because they classify to be Democratic, classify to be woke, or they classify to be a part of the movement, doesn't mean they're for you or will fight for you or be with you. And so he had the opportunity to do so and still didn't do it. And so I hate to give this man kudos, but I give him kudos for at least taking the recommendation other parole board and saying, listen, I'm not going to take this man's life. I'm going to give him an opportunity. And so I pray that now Julius Jones will have an opportunity. And shout out to his mom, who after 22 years got a chance to hug her son and be able to see her son because she couldn't hug her son. And, you know, the fact that you were moments away from losing him and got the opportunity to have him. So kudos to that family.
Absolutely. And Aisha, you're absolutely right when you say that, you know, let's see what Kim Kardashian and these celebrities are now going to do, because many times you're right, it's performative, as Zach Thomas would call it. They're doing this for the social media cloud. They're doing this to raise their profile. They're doing this to get attention, and they're not doing it for the right reason. So we're going to see what happens. And Deborah came back and said, white Democrats are always trying to impress Republicans and white suburban women. And I think that has been clearly proven this past week with what your president, Joseph R. Biden, bumbled and stumbled out of his mouth, saying that he believes in the power of these juries. So I agree with you, Deb. I agree 100%. It's right. It has been proven time and time again. And guys, I'm going to tell you this, you know, for me, the last week was, you know, really transformative, because I realized, yes, we need to vote. Yes, we need to vote for the best that's out there that will support our interests and possibly the lesser of multiple evils. But voting isn't going to solve the problem. It's not going to be enough. Joseph Biden and a number of people that we elect, at the end of the day, they're only going to care about themselves. And they're going to care about the people that put them in office. They're not going to do the right thing for the sake of doing the right thing. And I realize that, and I accept that. And, you know, clearly I want to say to everyone watching, hands down, because I was a huge supporter of the Biden administration. And I want to be transparent and clear when I say that, you know, I'm still going to vote for Joe Biden, probably over any Republican that runs against him, because that would be in my best interest and what I think is best for the country. However, I am extremely disappointed in the belief that many politicians, specifically focusing right now on Joe Biden, have, that by saying things like, I support this decision and it was a right decision because of the judicial system and blah, 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 they're trying to win votes and not anger conservatives, Republicans, and Trumpicans, and hoping that they're going to bring them over. When in actuality, you are losing your base in rapid numbers. And
maybe that's how he feels. That maybe his truth is coming out.
No, I believe that. No, Zach, I believe you. I agree with you. Now, I believe it. Just because Joe Biden is a Democrat doesn't mean that he gives one damn ounce or care one bit about any of the issues that I may care about. Yes. I do believe this is what he really believes. But what I'm saying is he's a politician. And politicians know what to say, and they know when to say it, and It doesn't stumble out. Joe Biden knew what he was saying, and he knew how he was saying it. Yesterday, I always watch This Week with George Stephanopoulos. I have been watching this program since I was a child, when it was This Week with David Brinkley. And so, you know, even though, you know, it was probably recorded on VHS tapes because I wasn't that old when he was on. But
it's like, we don't know who that is.
Correct. But here's the thing. Even with that, I've always watched the show, and I was watching how they talk about this case, and they were being very careful, trying not to bring the realities of race into the case. They're being very careful not to talk about it being an unfair verdict. And we know that it was. We know that race was paramount. We know that politics what mattered in the case, and they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to piss off this huge body of Republicans, conservatives, and Trumpicans. That's a problem.
But do you think they didn't want to talk about race because that race was only the white race that was in it? Besides the BLM.
This is the thing. You know what?
The guy on trial was white. The three people who got shot was white.
Listen,
his mama was white.
But what do I find? No, let me explain, Zach, because you hit. Zach and I disagree a great deal about what will end racism in America. Zach, who do I say can end racism in America?
You say the allies and the white people.
Only white people will end racism in America, because only white people benefit and uphold white supremacy. So they're the ones who must dismantle it. The 3 white men that Kyle Rittenhouse shot were doing the work that we want allies to do. When you see,
because you haven't checked the background of these people, and now they're putting those people on trial too.
Can I explain my point before
Go
you
ahead. I'm sorry.
jump in to talk about the background that is not relevant? The background and what two dead men did in the past, it doesn't matter today because they're dead men. This is the thing. If a black man would have assaulted and confronted a murderous 17-year-old white male, it is very likely that that black male would have lost his life and or would have ended up in jail on death row. But our allies jumped in to use their privilege because if the situation would have gotten to be criminal, they had more privilege at hand to avoid charges. That is what the movement teaches allies to do when you are a real ally. Those men lost their lives in support of Black Lives Matter. And to say that it is not about race absolutely is inaccurate. Kyle Rittenhouse went there because of race. It gained national coverage because of race. And now he's going to be probably a multi-millionaire because of race. Race is running up and down this case, and you can't take it out.
But Zach, if I could provide some pushback with that, because of the fact that if we have conversation about race, there wasn't the same energy. And I teeter with the other Zach on this one, because when we talk about the race concept, we didn't see the same kind of support or the rallying, even though I understand that the judge did, the opposing attorneys were trying to say that black preachers and things couldn't necessarily be in the courtroom and everything else and down there. But I didn't see that same kind of black support and same kind of black rallying as much for this Kyle Rittenhouse conversation, because the victims were not black men. And so that same energy was not given as is being given to the Ahmaud Arbery case at this current moment. So even though we can say all day that they were fighting on behalf of, Black Lives Matter and black people, does that really resonate with black people as it pertains to getting their support? Because we're not hearing the same kind of outrage. People are like, oh, okay, oh well, he got off. The focus right now is a black man is dead, and people play cops and they wanted to take justice in their own hands against a black man. Now you have two white men who were dead and one who was injured by a white man, and black people aren't. I'm not saying all. I'm just saying you're not hearing the same kind of outrage or the same kind of pushing of the agenda or the initiative. So I kind of still feel like I can say we're talking about race, but we're not seeing race the same way in this situation, and that could become very fickle, right?
Well, it is fickle, and it's by design, DeAndre. Here's the thing. You have to look at all the steps that were in place and all the things that have happened since Black Lives Matter protests. It's not so an educated black populace, a concerned and news savvy black populace is still very much involved and very much engaged. But there were a lot of people that jumped on board around social justice as a trend. It was a trendy thing to do to have your black square. It was a trendy thing to do to be on the streets marching and protesting. And now it's not so trendy because there are other things to think about. More people on my social media timeline were talking about the baby and Danny Lay and what they had going on that were talking about the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict as it was rolling out. That is exactly the problem in most communities, and that is how it's meant to function. That's why you have things like Fox Soul, you have things like the Breakfast Club. That's why you have things like all of those distractions, and they go hard, the Shade Room and Media Takeout. Those organizations go hard at times like this to distract the black community from the real issues that are out there. And that's why they're heavily funded by rich conservatives so that black people take their eyes off the real fight. And that's exactly what happened last week.
I feel like
black people distracted black people from the
right. I feel like that's a conspiracy.
Funded by conservatives.
I feel like that's a conspiracy.
It was set up like
I'm not on here just making up lies. I've researched where the money. I've researched these organizations.
I think, because I mean, at the end of even with Shade Room, like they were reporting the Rittenhouse stuff in real time. It was happening. Like a lot of I don't watch Fox Soul or whatever the case that is, but like some of these other sources, like the Breakfast Club, like a lot of these media sources that you just named were actually reporting the Rittenhouse, updates and things like in real time. Whenever they reported the judge when he was acting cuckoo, the Trump ringtone, they was reporting all of that like all at the same time. So I mean, I understand the funding part of your speech or what have you, but I think a lot of that stuff is
in no way am I wanting to accuse the Africans who created these organizations of the distractions they're doing. But Vince, when you research who owns these organizations and you research who is funding these organizations, you will see that I'm not just making up something or creating a conspiracy theory out of my head. Angelica Nwandu is the owner of the Shade Room. And Angelica Nwandu is heavily funded by conservative media. And the same thing goes for the Breakfast Club and Fox Soul. These people, Charlemagne the God is being heavily funded by Republicans. You also have a whole entire news network being created by Republicans called the Black News Channel. The Black News Channel was created by Julius Caesar Watts.
Okay, so we heard that. So wait. So we heard all this before. So my question to you is, what is your solution for this? Because we can sit in this pedestal and we can go against Shade Room, go against Breakfast Club, go against Media Takeout. The whole world is funded by white supremacists. Okay, the whole world is funded by Republicans. The whole world is funded by that. So what's the solution, Zach? Or we just go talk
and
about?
So is this week with George Stephanopoulos. He's funded by some white people.
Right, so what's the solution? I mean, Zach can bring the facts all day, but what is the solution of the issue? Or we just gonna hear about who's funded every single episode?
So here's the answer: is that people like me who are woke and who won't eat Chick-fil-A also won't troll and support the Shade Room and Media Takeout and give them clicks and keep them in business. But I know that the majority of Black people, they're not going to do what I do because they don't live like I live. They're not going to stand up for these convictions in the way I stand up for them. So again, I don't know what we're going to do, but I know that that is going. We finish. May I finish?
So to Candace's point, the solution is to ensure we are more informed on what we are consuming. I hear what you're saying, but I give the Shade Room and Breakfast Club some type of grace because at least they're saying something. At least they're bringing something out there. At least they couldn't be saying anything at all. They don't have to post nothing about Rittenhouse. They don't have to post anything about voting. They don't have to post about how important the Senate seats were for Georgia when it was time for us to put Ossoff and Warnock in. They didn't have to post all that, but they did. Even though it was not at the level of severity that it should be, as we all would like it to be, at least they're doing something. At least like I just can't take everything away from that because they're doing something. I just can't. I can't. And if that's the case, we need to rally around Diddy and Oprah and Beyonce and Jay-Z and all these other Black epsilon millionaires and billionaires and get their ass to fund Shade Room and all these other people. If we so hype about it.
We need to not fund. The Shade Room is by design. It's too late. The Shade Room doesn't need to exist. It's time for better Black-owned media to exist, and we need to support that. I don't read the Shade Room and Media Takeout. I look at the Griot. I look at the Root.com. I look at reputable Black news outlets, and I see what they're saying.
You said the Real?
I said the Root and the Griot.
Oh, the Griot. I thought you said the Root.
But again, if I could speak without being cut off and being overtalked, maybe you could hear me.
No one cut you off when you were saying that.
No, I just asked
I have been cut off multiple times tonight.
Zach, you been speaking. Ain't nobody to cut you off. We're play the minutes.
I have been cut off multiple times in the discussion.
You been speaking. Let's be clear.
We ain't saying nothing.
Both of y'all been speaking.
Who?
Well, go to the next topic, and it's Adele.
That was a great transition.
I had something I wanted to say, but that's okay. I'll save it for the after show. Y'all meet us on Instagram at 10 o'clock.
No, say that shit now.
No, I was just gonna say we is tired, boss. We is tired. We can't fight. We can't fight everybody fight. We just tired. That's why a lot of people are just logging off and disengaging. I'm so tired. I really am tired. Okay, go ahead. Talk about Adele. This girl make me cry, y'all. I'm sick of her.
Okay, so as we know, Adele has released her long-awaited, highly anticipated album by the name of 30. She recently did a really good interview, and she said something that really, resonated with me in regards to her thoughts. So basically, prior to the album coming out, her label wanted to make sure that 14-year-olds, the TikTok generation, knew who she was. And her reply was, but they've all got moms. Their moms know who I am. If everyone's making music for the TikToks, who's making music for my generation? Who's making the music for my peers? And she responded with that, saying that I will do that job gladly. She prefers to cater to the crowd that have been going through life struggles, love, and even therapy or what have you. So my thoughts around it is, even though TikTok is, of course, extremely massive and very important in regards to marketing and just all these things or what have you, when you bring Adele into the conversation, like, she's selling out stadiums, like she's selling out arenas. And so for a label to sort of, I guess, try to sway her into the TikTok generation, it brings up this thing where it's like, okay, are we doing that so she can, stay relevant? Is it the conversation around her just to be the most successful kind of thing? And do you feel that even artists like her, artists that may be in her same age range or generation, like Beyonce, Usher, Justin Timberlake, Mariah, Neo, like all these people, do you feel like they possibly lose their fan bases or their sense of touch, of music, of lyricism, because they cater too much to, or have catered rather too much to, the TikTok generation, the Gen Zers, when we know that like Usher and Beyonce are clearly Generation X, or the upper end of the millennial thing. So I thought it was a pretty cool moment that she had, and I just wanted to hear your thoughts about it in regards to just musicality and industry, and what's your fan base? Who should you cater to? Go.
I think I've said this on this platform many times. You should cater to whoever the hell you want to cater to. And so I don't think it's a bad thing to cater to TikTok users. I think some of y'all might disagree and call it, gimmicky or things like that, or trolly. But I think that artists should have the free reign to explore their artistry in the way that they want to, and to demonstrate that in the way that they want to. The problem is that when you are in a contract and your contract has financial ties, or there are goals that they have to fulfill in order to keep you in your contract, that I think you do things from a marketing perspective more so than from an artistic perspective. So I think that it's important that when these people are signing contracts, they know who they're getting into contract with, and that they also have a plan for marrying what it is that they like to do with being very lucrative, which is something I think that Adele has no problem with.
I think you also, though, you run into the situation to where at the end of the day, the people who are going to support you.
Exactly.
And that's going to be the thing. And I think the problem you run into is the fact that you got to be very careful about towing the line, because we've always, unfortunately, we hear often, like, for instance, people said that Mary J. Blige's music was better when she was going through something. When she ain't going through nothing, her music's horrible. The issues like that. I hate to say this, but gospel artist Marvin Sapp said he stopped singing certain songs because he was tired of his best sellers being songs that came out of pain and struggle. Like his best songs came out of depression and pain, and that became an issue. So even we got to be very, you have to be very careful about, even though you want to be relevant and so forth, you don't want to lose your art, because people also will see your, you not being authentic through your music anyway. I've seen these artists try to play to the younger generation, and it comes off, it looks gimmicky, it looks weird, doesn't, and you lose. So you barely get that base you're trying to go after, and then you start losing the base that you had originally, because they're like, we need that old. And so it's kind of, I appreciate the fact that Adele is saying, listen, I need to make sure I can say I stay consistent with the people that I love. If they like me, they like me. But what we will find out is, unfortunately, Adele's music will touch a generation later. We see a lot of the younger generation now catching the older generation now, but they're not, that's way past. So I stay true to you, because you will see the residual of your respect come, may not now, but it will come. We're seeing the 90s music and the 80s, like people are paying homage to that music now, but because they stayed true to who they were. And so I appreciate Adele doing what she's doing, and I hate the fact that she's feeling like though that she's getting flack because she's not necessarily being the new age, but she's still sticking true to their moms. And so I appreciate it.
Well, Adele just got went viral again because if you hadn't seen Plies singing "Go Easy on Me,"
aka Kirk Franklin.
Yeah, and then Kirk Franklin retweeted, reposted it because he said that was him singing it. And so, I mean, I love Adele. And I guess she's making music for me, my age generation, since I'm the oldest on here.
You know, I will say this because it's something I've been thinking about quite often. I'm an Adele fan, love Adele as well. And Adele, of course, is on TikTok. The TikTok kids are still using the song for their TikToks. But if a Black artist would have sang the exact same songs, the exact same production, and the exact same PR, would they be doing as well as Adele? And I say
Great
no.
question.
And I say no. Let me tell you why I say no. Adele is singing R&B music, and the R&B industry has been suffering a lot. And a lot of R&B albums are not doing well in regards to sales and plays. And there are a lot of very talented young women out there singing music who are talented. I won't say they're more talented than Adele. I'm not saying they're at the Adele level, but they're very talented and they're not getting streams, they're not getting plays, and they're not getting attention. Adele is singing music in a style that is truly reflective of Black R&B. And she's doing it very well, getting lots of sales and lots of attention. But to me, I want to see Adele use her privilege to highlight Black artists in this moment.
I think she does. I'm sorry to cut you off. I think she does. I think that's one artist who does that. She loves a Beyonce. She talks about all Black art. She talks about a Jasmine Sullivan. I think she has definitely been one to uplift Black artists because she know that's where she gets her style from, and she know that's a lot of her audience too. If you looked at the concert with Oprah, it was a lot of people who looked like you and I in that audience, sitting on the front row. Even her new man looked like us. And so I think she gets it. I would say.
But I guess my other caveat to be is give me an artist that can provide the musicality that she gives, and I might be able to say the same thing about that. At the end of the day, there are, because a lot of these artists aren't flat-foot singers. A lot of them are studio singers who do great with studio music. Adele is not a studio singer. So if you get me a flat-foot singer that can get a Black flat-foot singer who can do that, then maybe. But I won't say that just because, any Black person would or would not give, because if you think about, I'm just throwing her out there, like it's not even an equation, but we use Beyonce. If you say Beyonce, or if you're doing Adele, I'm sorry, Lizzo, or any of these artists who comes out like a Jasmine Sullivan, again, but it's also dependent upon, the label you have and everything else. So it's also upon those labels to push the artists that they have as well. So you can't fault Adele because she had a label and she had a group of people.
Yeah, I'm not faulting Adele, but what I am faulting is the industry. And these record labels are choosing to highlight Adele because she is a white R&B singer, and they're not giving that same kind of shine behind the Black artists like Jasmine Sullivan who are out there. You can think back to Patti LaBelle. Adele is great, but she's no Patti LaBelle. She's no Patti LaBelle. And Patti LaBelle never hit the numbers, never sold the records, never had the airplay of Adele's first album, let alone her fifth. And that to me is the tragedy of the American music industry.
But I think that too, Zach, goes to the time frame that those artists were also in as well, because a lot of those artists were being backed by, they were trying their best to be supported by Black production companies and studios and so forth and so forth. At that time, when you think about Motown, those gentlemen at Motown, all those artists and all that music happened. Motown was they were an amazing organization, but they were not getting the finances and the resource they have because they just didn't have. But yet people were banking or using their likenesses and using their stuff. They had to go over to Capitol Records and they had to go to these other places to actually get that. So it kind of goes back to the idea of when do you start also pouring those funds and pouring those resources, send those black artists to these black companies so they can actually be able to get that actual shine. So it's like, I think it's a different time. So it's one of those things where the Patti LaBelle and the Gladys Knights and the Shaka Khans and the Dionne Warwicks and all that, and those backgrounds, those were a different scenario. Even when Whitney Houston came out and when Clyde Davis went and came and got Whitney Houston, you know, she got pushed. But that's because of the fact that they saw something in her, and the industry actually put that back there. So I think it's the time frame, but I also think it's the actual artist.
But I think we also are missing a whole another word that we hadn't said, and it's horrible to say, is the crossover. Like that's what really matters. Is a Jasmine Sullivan crossing over to the white counterparts? Not everybody is doing that. And so not everybody is appealing to that music. And so I think somebody said it earlier, you appealing to the audience that you are catering to. And I think we have to be mindful of that. Not everybody wants to be the Adeles. Not everybody wants to be the Patti LaBelles. So I think they are being the person that they want to be.
That's good. I did want to quickly shout out Summer Walker. She actually broke a huge record. Her R&B album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 chart. Moved over 160,000 units its first week, and I know she like broke records on Apple and just all these things. And of course, she's a wholehearted Atlanta native R&B singer. So, but then I think that goes into Dr. Pickett's point. Even in the Adele conversation, everybody likes to, you know, support and cater to people's projects when they're sad and pissed off and, you know, went through divorces and heartache and all these things or what have you. But I do feel that R&B still has some type of, you know, relevance right now. I really don't know why it's not being as funded, because I still feel like a lot of mainstream R&B artists still have that ability to cater and crossover, as Zach put earlier or what have you. But I think it ultimately just falls. The labels definitely play part, but the labels do respond to the consumer as well. And I feel like if the consumers put a lot of energy, like I know Summer Walker's next project is going to be so mainstream and so supported and so everywhere, because the labels see like, oh wow, her crowd is actually catering and investing and you know, putting their money and their streams and downloads and energy into her career. So I feel like the consumers, we can't declare these people as washed up, our very own. Mm-hmm. You know, we can't cancel our very own people. You know, we can't, you know, just sort of fall off and call them has-beens or what have you. And I feel like once we stop doing that to our own people and keep that same energy as they had in the 70s, like a Gladys and Patty, or in the 80s or in the 90s, like a Brandy and Monica, these people could still be as successful as Adele and her other counterparts.
And Vince, when you talk about her, what keeps coming to mind is her. I keep thinking about her, and I think about how people equate her to like being a form of like a female Prince who is able to, you know, when I say that, like she is able to cross, and you know, the fact that she is being, you know, the musicality of her, and she's, you know, eclectic in her own way, and the fact that she is actually crossing over to both sides. So it's kind of one of those back and forth catch. Oh yeah, that's funny.
I feel like we should have hyped the black artists up today then. Somebody that we haven't heard of.
And again, I'm an Adele fan. I listen to a wide sweeping range of music. I just feel as though, again, the way that people, and I agree with DeAndre, it's about the crossover appeal, but it's also about American racism. You can't be black and sing R&B music and pull a white audience many times. You're not pulling the mainstream white audience. You're pulling white musicians and you're pulling white people that love good music, but you're not pulling that mainstream audience. But you can pull the black mainstream audience when you are a white R&B singer and you already have the built-in white audience. And again, that is a functionality of American, racism, in my opinion. Another function of American racism was also on display with this situation from Sesame Street. Zach Thomas, tell us about it.
So if you don't know, Sesame Street introduced a new character on an Asian character, Jia Young, and the CPAC president calls for a defunding of PBS because they are thinking, why are we putting race into these Muppets? He was like, we don't know the race of Bert, we don't know the race of Ernie, and then we want to go and add gender to the whole picture. And so I know there are a lot of educators on this panel. And so I wanted to get your thoughts about introducing race to Muppets. I know we had Zach wrote a book and Darius wrote a book and they had black characters. Do you think that's still an issue or something that needs to be seen on TV in our books, especially for kids? Race, gender, sexual orientation. They also added recently an autistic character as well on Sesame Street.
Sesame Street is doing great work. Sesame Street that is exactly what you need to see. We need to see the whole rainbow and everybody represented on Sesame Street. Every child should be able to turn on Sesame Street and they should be able to see themselves. And everyone knows that Bert and Ernie was the first interracial homosexual relationship on television. Now they know damn well that Ernie is black and Bert is white as hell. Like everyone knows that the two of them, you know that. You can tell by the way they act and the way they look as Muppets. So shame on this idiot he's from Texas, right?
Yes, and he's the
like many of the Republican idiots from Texas. Shame on him for this nonsense and this whole entire attempt to discredit windows and mirrors that children desperately need in the world that we live in.
So what is Big Bird? What is Grouch? What is Captain Jack?
I know that they said Big Bird was 6. I think Big Bird recently caught some heat because they did an episode about getting vaccinated when the vaccines became available to kids.
Mm-hmm.
Big Bird was like, hey, I'm going to get vaccinated. And a lot of people are like, why are we putting the vaccines into our children? Why, that whole conversation. So Sesame Street has been getting some, hit for this year. Because even back in March, they revealed their first, the black son and father, Wes and hold on, I just Wes and Elijah and Wes, and they actually did something called the ABCs of racial literacy. They talk about skin color, melanin, just all that stuff. So I truly feel that just as white supremacists and the right are breeding Kyle Rittenhouses, underneath the radar and things like that, I think that Sesame Street is just breeding inclusion and representation and things of good nature of how the world actually looks at a young age. So I just think that Sesame Street is countering, public broadcasting is countering what the right and the white supremacy is doing, and they just mad about it.
So it would be great to see Big Bird get inoculated or vaccinated from the bird flu. I agree with that. But when you talk about inclusion and having everybody included, one thing that's oftentimes not discussed and not included is when men are the victims of sexual assault by women. And we can leave it to our resident out-of-the-box thinker, Dr. Pickett, to identify these fascinating stories to share with us. Dr. Pickett, tell us about some sexual assault.
Thank you for the conclusion of shade, Mr. But this particular story caught my attention because of the fact that as I was going through the news and reading this outcome, it was just very interesting to hear about Lola Adesioye and Banga Akinegbe, who he is known for his role in The Wire, and she, of course, is a journalist. They met each other in 2019 at a party, and they became cordial with each other, so much so that they kind of escalated to some more flirting, and then from flirting it went to occasional kissing, and then she ended up needing some place to stay, and so he had an apartment. next to his, and they were pretty much neighbors, and so he allowed her to start renting the apartment. He also had issues with his publicist or his administrative assistant, and so she started taking on also some of those roles as well, taking some of those things for him. So much so that eventually she started feeling like she was being used because of the fact that even though they were still engaging with each other, never said sexually, but one, I guess, could assume because, of course, they were engaging in their relationship on and off, professionally and non-professional. She eventually said she was a little felt she was being used, and so she ultimately started pulling away. She was actually charged on March 20th for sexual assault or sexual misconduct. He stated that happened on May 14th, 6 days from the time that she had been locked up, and he had actually moved in. She had moved into the place not long after that. And then, of course, there were some. She stated, because of the fact that he wasn't necessarily paying. There was some misconceptions about him not paying her for work done, so she withheld rent from him and things of that nature. All that came down, he came down with this sexual assault. The case was dismissed because there were some inconsistencies with his story. Not necessarily saying they didn't necessarily prove that it wasn't true. There just was inconsistencies with the story, and so they dropped the case. The reason why I brought this actually up because of the fact that these two were, in essence, engaging with each other in a non-professional way, even though it started non-professional, and then they started working professionally together. But periodically throughout their time, there were many aspects of non-professional working. And him doing this, do you think we as a culture tend to become less, we tend to less agree with a man saying that he was sexually assaulted because of the nature we've been in currently, that's been more women as the victims? Do we tend to less believe men? And do you think that this was a bad way of going about this? If in essence that they just were in a bad situation to where they were no longer, he got tired of being used by her, she got tired of being used by him. So it's a two-part. One, do we believe these kind of stories, and does it hurt the same? And also, do you think that this was a bad way of going about it?
This is one that would take, I feel like this is a topic that deserves a whole show. Like, this is a whole show topic. And it would, like, for me, I would have liked to do even more research on men who've actually come forward. I think men haven't even come forward with the levels of abuse they may have sustained. And I think it's really, really sad. I think this is way more common than we know. And I also think that society as a whole isn't ready to address it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'd have to agree. And I think Zach is sort of catering. I'm not catering, but making his point with what you just said. We so tight-lipped right now. You've been talking about it. I guess it is, like Zach said, it is common probably. But I don't know why we don't speak up about it at all. But to your second question, Dr. Pickett, was he wrong for doing this, or was this done about the wrong way? Like, in me reading the story, I'm just trying to figure out. Oh, am I frozen?
We can hear you. We can see you, Vince.
Oh, you can? Y'all frozen.
But we can hear you.
My bad. But no, hopefully I can hear this. I was just trying to figure out, like, what was the sexual thing that she did. Okay. I was trying to figure out what was the sexual act that she did for him to feel harassed. That's what I was missing. I don't know. And if it's a lie, then of course he definitely went about this going the wrong way, because he just mad because she didn't want to work for free.
And Vince, in some aspect, I think they're still part of the story we absolutely do not know, because my thing is, at the end of the day,
right,
you all were engaged in some kind of engagement. It started out so I can't necessarily say that you weren't. I can't necessarily say you were or weren't, because you started out, y'all were flirting, you were flirtatious, you have casual kissing. Now that's what they're saying now. I do believe it could have gone further. I don't know. So I think that there's more to the story that they don't necessarily want to come out. And so I feel like they're kind of being nice about certain things. But I do believe, I think at the end of the day, this in some regards, sometimes if he is not telling the truth, especially if he couldn't, again, because it never said that, they just dropped the case because his stories weren't adding up. So they didn't necessarily say it did not happen. His stories weren't adding up and he could not express. And so it was onus on him and his lawyers to do the service to actually bring the case out. But it's not to say it didn't happen. So the question becomes, when you open up the can of worms by engaging in relationships and interactions, when you open that can of worms, you have to be careful, and try to mix business with that as well. You're opening up other issues. And so, stuff just went haywire. So I just think there's more stuff that we do not know.
But you still can withdraw consent anytime, no matter what can of worms you open, or if you, were engaging willingly at some point, and at some point you were no longer comfortable with that, you're still able to verbalize that. So I would hate to send the message that, once you in it, like anything is like, kind of just par for the course. But at the same time, you need to verbalize that and make sure that, if you are withdrawing your consent, that is something that's very clear.
And that's a powerful statement, Dion. That's a powerful statement, Darius, right? Like, men also have the right to withdraw consent when they are with women. I think that is a powerful statement. It's resonating. I've never heard it said that way. And I think it's true. And again, I know that I would not question a woman who said these allegations happened by a man. And I wouldn't ask, what did they do? I would just assume, unfortunately, right or wrong, that probably happened. So I feel biased because I want to know more too. Like, I don't feel like I know enough. But then I think to myself, would I have said that if it had been a female? So this whole story, again, is beautiful, DeAndre, and there's a whole lot of nuance to it. It needs to be explored more. I'm going to follow. I don't know who these people are, okay? Let me, I don't know who they, look at this. I don't know them. I ain't never seen them a day in my life. But now I'm going to follow this story to see where it goes and what happens. It is truly a symbol of Black excellence. And with Black excellence, we have Black History 365 days a year. Darius, do we have any Black people today?
I don't know how I feel about this transition, but we're going to go on in. On this day, November 22nd, in 1985, Colonel Frederick D. Gregory became the first Black person to pilot a space shuttle when he led the Challenger on a 7-day mission as an astronaut. He has spent more than 455 hours in outer space, and he commanded 3 major space missions from 1985 to 1991. So that is Frederick D. Gregory, the first Black person to pilot a space shuttle.
We have a great after show. Zach Thomas, tell us the topics that you have identified for tonight's after show. Zach Thomas, pick the topics and let's talk about what we're going to talk about.
So some of the topics that have been chosen is have been chosen is the Real Housewives of Potomac, of course. Also, prayers and thoughts are for Wendy Williams. We've heard some pressing news about her, but then also Tammy Rowland has been in the news lately on The Real when she talked about her eating disorder, and because people were wondering what's going on with her.
Tammy Rowland.
So join us for the after show.
Oh, Tammy.
Yeah, I didn't know about Tammy Rowland. That's the Bonnet Baby. Oh wow. Okay.
Oh, so you're not talking about Gorilla Girl and her rapping career?
Well, yeah,
and more. Yes.
My hair.
Oh, and the verses. The verses. We didn't talk about the verses with Shaka and Stephanie. Join us for the after show.
We didn't talk about the verses because CJ is not here to talk about it, but we can check him out, Darius, where?
on all podcast streaming services. The name of the podcast is Pride, Love, and Ego. It is CJ and my friend Clarence. Y'all check them out on anywhere that you listen to your podcasts.
You get Anchor FM, Spotify. You can listen to it on Apple Music.
Podcasts.
It's on all streaming platforms. And you know that our friend CJ, who always brought the versus battles as a topic for that week, is going to dissect that. And if you haven't watched it, please do so. Also, it's a cheesecake. Vince, is it over? Like, you can't order no cheesecakes now. It's damn over.
Ain't no more cakes to eat.
Ain't no more cakes. Well, there's to eat, but not cheesecake. I saw a picture on Instagram, and Vince had like all the tables and everything was full of cheesecakes. Everything, and I'm like, if you ain't bought one by now, you can't get one, can you?
You got 2 hours. At midnight, I'm stopping. I am cutting off.
Overnight? Can you overnight to DC?
We working on it. I'm working on it, but yeah, I'm stopping orders
the
at midnight.
No.
Right.
It's a hard day for me after this because let me tell you something. You know how we do. It be not even the fourth quarter. This quarter. Everybody, you got, can I?
Well, I'm gonna order one on Thursday.
I want to say this to you people. I need to get big to say this to you people. Hold on. You people knew that Thanksgiving was Thursday. Now you knew. You checked the calendar at the beginning of October to find out what Thursday Thanksgiving was gonna fall on. But yeah, you don't wait till last. You just now. If I go to Kroger, Publix, Whole Foods, or even up to Walmart, you gonna be in there slam packed. I can't even get my beard dyed because you getting your full Thanksgiving meals the week of Thanksgiving, and it's you.
And I can't even get no turkey wings because they all gone.
Oh, I had some good turkey wings last night. Listen, Vince, if you looking to hire an assistant or a sous chef, I'm off this week.
Listen, I may hold you to that. My mom.
I'm gonna order one on Thursday morning.
Well, but what'd you say? What'd you say minimum wage should be? Did you say minimum wage should be $30 an hour?
I said my mama coming to help me in the morning. That's what I said.
Oh, okay.
So if you haven't ordered your cheesecake, you have 2 hours left to do so. But you also have a huge runway between now and Christmas to order your Christmas cheesecake. So again, think about those things. Order your Christmas cheesecake. Listen to CJ's podcast. Watch Rodney's brand new reality show. I forget the name of it, but I know it's probably great and entertaining. And you also have Darius for Christmas to get some stocking stuffers with his book,
DJ's Favorite Day.
There you go. So this is exactly what I'm saying right there. Everybody, we will see you on Instagram. Talk to you soon. Have a great week. Happy Thanksgiving for those who celebrate, or Happy Indigenous Peoples Day.
Woo!